Welcome back, Inebri-arts. This is Andy, the Inebri-art podcast. And I'm actually really excited today. We've had a ton of guests on, and I'd love to say that I am familiar with today's guest because of my children, but that would be a little bit of a lie. We are talking to Invader Zim himself, Richard Horvitz. Welcome to the show, man.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. I'm I gotta say, my kids were like big Angry Beaver fans and Invader Zim fans.
Your kids must be older then, because
Beavers,
wow,
they're like, my son's 19. And
my oldest son was mentioned in one of the episodes. I believe it was in the same episode of Tree of Hearts in Angry Beavers, where where Daggett's going through the mail and Norbert goes, "Hey Richard, look at this." Hey Daggett, look at this. Richard Horvitz had a baby boy, Jake Elliott. He was, born, April 11th, blah, blah, blah.
And that's really cool.
Yeah. Dad goes, "Ew, who's Richard Horvitz?" And Norbert says, "Nobody." So that kid is now 24 years old.
Oh, that's funny. I love, and that's one of those things, like, there was that whole generation of cartoons that I really liked watching with my kids, because there was always like weird inside jokes. I remember I was watching Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, and they were walking through a bowling alley, and it was kind of doing the Flintstones things, couch in a chair, couch in a chair, couch in a chair, Big Lebowski, couch in a chair. And I'm like, whoa. And my kids are like, what? I'm like, I can't even, you wouldn't get it.
That goes on more often than you would realize, how many things we put kind of subversive or subliminal things in there. But it's funny, you talk about it. In the early days, there was an episode of Angry Beavers when Norbert says, "Shut up, Dag!" And Nickelodeon was adamant that we do not say "shut up." So we had to go in and re-record "shut up" to "hush up." And then they aired "shut up" anyway.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. And it's like, I was watching, they had a Nickelodeon documentary not too long ago.
I saw it on the plane recently. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Early years of the Splat or something like that.
Yeah. And they were kind of like, they just let us do what we wanted to do. And
but what's funny about that is, if you look at that documentary, Angry Beavers was one of the early shows, one of the original series for the network. And it's not even mentioned. They rarely mention Angry Beavers.
Yeah. It was, I watched a ton of it with my kids. It was such a good show, but it was kind of that, the ones that kind of stand out are like the Cat Dogs and
right.
And
which is funny, because I personally think Cat Dog is a stupid premise, but we were before Cat Dog.
Right. Yeah.
Funny. Yeah. So
was it around the time as Rocko's Modern Life? Was that kind of like the same era?
We were around Doug and mostly Hey Arnold. Hey Arnold and Angry Beavers were kind of at the same time.
And how did you get involved with Zim? It's either one of the, I was trying to explain to a friend today who you were, and I'm like, you either know exactly who Zim and Richard are, or you have no idea it exists. It seems like there's no in between.
How did I get involved with Zim? Well, I think that when you mention people who know you or don't know you, they'd be surprised at the characters that you've done that they do know and don't realize that it's me. Like, they don't realize I'm Alpha 5 on the Power Rangers. Most people.
Oh, really?
Yeah. See, there you go.
Oh,
you didn't know that. So
no,
you were familiar with my characters. You just didn't necessarily put a voice to the name. But in regards to the Invader Zim show, I was working on Angry Beavers, and the creator of the show, the reason I brought up Power Rangers, Jonah Vasquez was a fan of Power Rangers and had grown up watching it.
Yeah.
And so I was at the studio when they came in to do the pilot, but I was doing Angry Beavers at the time. And so Jonan wanted me to play Invader Zim. Except the executive producer said, well, he's already doing Angry Beavers and we don't want to have the same voice. And so, no. So they said no. And this is the misconception that's gone on for years, is that it was either going to be Mark Hamill or it was going to be Billy West. And so they cast Billy West.
Yeah.
But I was Jonan's first choice. But because I wasn't available, they went with Billy West. And Billy is still a dear friend of mine. But Jonan when Angry Beavers had finished its run, we were done. He said, "Oh, wait a minute, you're available now." I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, let's have you dub over some of Billy's scenes, and we'll submit that to New York, and we'll pitch it a little bit."
Mm-hmm.
And like that, I was Zim all of a sudden. Now, the misconception is that even Nickelodeon loves to promote it this way as the never before aired pilot of Invader Zim featuring Billy West as Invader Zim.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
What people don't realize is that it's not all Billy. Like Billy may start a line, but I'll finish it, or I'll do the whole line. It'll be like Billy's laugh or vice versa. But because I was brought in just to dub over, I didn't get a credit. I didn't get a screen credit for it.
Mm-hmm.
But that pilot, if you listen to it, 70 to 90% of it is me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. And you must have people kind of like stop and be like, "Why did you sound so familiar? Do I know you?" Like, is it?
Well, what a lot of people don't realize is that I started out as an on-camera actor, and I still do on-camera work, but I'm predominantly known as voiceover veteran. That's what you'll always read, voiceover veteran. But I've been acting since I was 10, so I've literally been a SAG member for 45 years. And I was in a movie called Summer School with Mark Harmon, directed by Kirstie Alley. Was
that the one where the kid went to the bathroom for like the whole summer? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that one.
I played Alan Ekian, the nerd. I am an Ekian Grams. So
I vaguely remember that movie. I'm gonna have to go back and.
A lot of people don't know that I was the green grapes in the Fruit of the Loom commercials, all those music video ones. That was
me. Oh wow.
I was in Head of the Class. I started in musical theater professionally at 13.
Yeah.
And that was always the path that I thought that I was going to pursue. But because I was living in Los Angeles and doing TV and film and commercials, there was no way an agent in LA was going to send me to New York for 8 months to a year to do a play because it's not lucrative enough for them. So I never ended up doing that. I still maintain, when there's no pandemic going on, I still do theater every opportunity I get.
Oh, that's cool.
But that's how I got involved with Invader Zim.
So how did you transition from that kind of, screen stage actor to voiceover? It seems like I see that a lot from voice actors. Yeah.
In fact, any voice actor that I would say predominantly, with maybe the exception of Bob Bergen, that's not even true. Bob Bergen also started out on camera or in bands. Rob Paulson was a singer.
Yeah.
Also did some on-camera work. We all started on camera. There's not a lot of us in that day and age where we came up. In Hanna-Barbera and onward as cable came in and now streaming, etc. I don't think that a good majority of us started out to be voiceover actors.
Yeah.
We all started off on camera, but our voiceover careers really took off. Tom Kenny, SpongeBob, is a perfect example. He and I did a movie together in the 80s, and we didn't even know each other. It was called How I Got Into College.
Yeah, I remember he was also in Shakes the Clown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, because he was good friends with Bobcat, and Bobcat actually directs, too.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah.
But yeah, we both had 80s. I used to say, voiceovers where actors from the 80s go to die, but that was not very fair assessment because it turned out to be like the best choice I ever made in my career. But the transition went something like this for me. I had been doing a television series from like 1984 to 1986 called Safe at Home for WTBS, which is now just TBS at Turner Superstation. And then from there, I went on to do Summer School, the movie. And then I came back from that shoot and I did the new Munsters with John Schuck and Lee Merriweather. And I did it's called The Munsters Today.
Yeah.
And I was always working. I was always working in one on-camera thing or another. But around 1989 or so, it may be a little bit earlier, maybe 88. It was 1988. There was a Writers Guild strike.
Okay.
That Writers Guild strike lasted a long time. Well, it's just as the movie Summer School came out, so I couldn't capitalize on that because there was a strike going on. So by the time the strike ended, and it was like a 6-month strike, Summer School had come and gone. The summer had passed. And so I was like kind of at a dead end as to what to do, because when that strike finally ended, all of the like A-list celebrities, they hadn't been working either.
Right.
So suddenly this was the birth of stunt casting. And stunt casting, as you know, is when they bring in celebrities to do what would normally go to an up and coming, guest star or co-star role. So suddenly those roles became fewer and far between.
Yeah.
I had bills and a house to pay for and cars and all the rest of it. And I had a dear friend. His name was Michael Cutt, who was on the series with me. Michael was famous for a lot of things, but predominantly he was, remember that Stroh's beer commercial where the dogs are playing poker and he goes, watch this, go get us 2 beers. And the dog gets us beers. Anyway, it's a long time ago. It was from the 80s. Michael was the lead in those commercials, in the Stroh beer commercials. But anyway, Michael said, our agent, because we shared an agent, our commercial agent shared an office with a voiceover agent named Sandy Schnarr. And, he said, you should talk to her because you got a perfect voice for animation. And the thing was a lot of what was happening with casting was that they would say, he doesn't sound like he looks. They would expect like a deeper, voice from me or something. And it wasn't, you hear the helicopter flying over my
I do.
my studio right now? That means that there's probably a car chase going on right outside. Anyway, So I was totally naive, and I went to my agent at the commercial agent, and I said, hey, can you get me in with voiceover? And they said, well, it's not part of our agency. You'd have to go over yourself, but we can introduce you.
Yeah. So
I met Sandy, and Sandy said, we don't have a voice in your range. It sounds young. So yeah, you need to go make a commercial demo. So I did. And back then it was a reel-to-reel demo. And I thought, there you go. And she was like, well, you should take classes and everything. But I didn't take classes or anything. I recommend it highly these days. But my first month there at that agency, I booked 3 radio commercial spots. And that's how I took off. But it took me about 5 years to break into animation because I didn't have an animation demo. But once I got there, I never looked back. It's my medium. It's my niche, as it were. And the reason I love animation is because I get to, do what I do when I do it in front of a microphone instead of, in front of a camera. I get a new script every week. I get to work with amazing guest stars, and I get to follow a storyline in any other television show.
Now, when you're doing voiceover, is there any improv, or is that kind of like really frowned upon because there's, another person kind of doing the, the movement and all that stuff? Or
no, because it depends on how you do it. We're talking the difference between like anime, you're kind of glued to what is already drawn because you're just dubbing.
Right.
But in traditional Western animation, like at Nickelodeon, they do the storyboard after, or they do a preliminary storyboard. It doesn't even matter. You don't even look at the storyboard.
Okay.
If you're lucky to work with creators like I was, like Mitch Schauer or Jonan Vasquez or Maxwell Adams, who did The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. They knew that I was an improviser from way back. I had done, stand-up comedy, and I'd been in sketch comedy groups like, Natural Gas, or the reincarnation of a sketch group called Natural Gas. And so it's one of my things that I do. I improvise. And so they want you to do that because, you're working equally on the project together. It's not really a lot of ego involved, when it comes to animation, at least not that I've experienced.
Yeah.
Cartoon Network, when we did Billy and Mandy, they did have a storyboard, but I would improvise up a storm. And in fact, my wife and I wrote 2 episodes of Billy and Mandy. But yeah, I've been lucky. In fact, the video games I do too. I have one out right now called Psychonauts 2 that just came out, where I play Raz, the lead character. And they love it when I improvise. As long as you don't go off on a monologue.
Right. Yeah. I forgot all about Grim and Mandy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just Billy and Mandy. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, there's a perfect example. You didn't think about that one and that's what's great, because that's flattering to a voice artist, because it's great that you don't remember or know that I also did that voice, because you don't want your voices to be that close.
Right.
But you always know it's me. And one, you know Tom Kenny's voice, Frank Welker's voice, and it doesn't prevent us from going into different worlds, as I call it, into different stories, because the animation's different. Who we are in those stories are different. And we may sound, very similar. Like if you look at like the game Skylanders, where I play Chaos, that is very similar to the Invader Zim voice.
Yeah.
But it's a different world with different wants. And so you follow me into those stories. It's like I've always said, if you go to a Robert De Niro movie, Robert De Niro sounds the same in Casino as he does in Goodfellas, as he does in anything else. But because he makes the story more important than himself, you follow him into that story. It's not different because it's animation, you're still taking people on a journey into a different world.
So do you ever feel the pressure to kind of like really change your voice for a specific character? No,
not particularly. I really don't. I mean, I think my body of work will prove that if you the belief is you have to have 100 different voices to do animation.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that. I think there are people that can do 100 different voices and they're great.
Yeah.
They're amazing. But there are also, 100 different, there's people that can do 100 different voices that can't act.
Right.
And so I happen to be able to play pretend fully. And so my story to me is always more important than myself. And so, I have a saying. The saying is, the voice does the work of the spirit, which is not a religious statement. It's basically the spirit I'm talking about is the spirit of play.
Yeah.
We do voices all the time and we don't even realize it. So, for example, if you're going to talk to a baby, you don't think to yourself, now, what voice am I going to use that lets this baby know that I think it's cute? Hello, baby. No, we automatically go, hi. Yeah. Aren't you a cutie? We do voices all the time. We do like if you have a pet, we do good ball. We do voices all the time.
Right.
And it comes out of that spirit of play. And so there are times we're on a record together and we don't even know what voices we're going to do. And sometimes like I'll be on a show with Billy West, or I'll be on a show with Tom Kenny, and they'll go, your guys' voices are too close. One of you change. Then we change it.
Yeah.
I could go like this any day and do this if I want to, or I can do something like that. I can do like anything else. But most of the time, I'm very close to my own voice because, I have a distinctive voice.
Right.
It's me. So.
Yeah. I love the fact that you refer to it as pretend and play. And I think that's part of what I really love about what I do is, I kind of was like, I don't want to grow up. I want to do what I want to do. And that's drawing and hanging out with friends and talking to cool people and, creating content. And I had someone say to me today, they said something about needing to get a regular job. And I'm like, that's really offensive. I'm like, because it implies what I'm doing is not a job that,
It's what I refer to as middle-class mentality. And it was taught to me by my teacher, my acting teacher years ago. Middle-class mentality says, you can't be a rock star at 80 years old. Tell that to Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr, right?
Or even, Christopher Lee, who made a hit. Yeah.
Right. But here's the difference. The difference is that the simple fact that we have to even justify what we've chosen to do as a career, because the mass of people will say, well, so what, you just screw around and you get paid for that? Because we've chosen not to sit behind a desk.
Right.
Well, the fact of the matter is this. If you go to I'll give you a perfect example from an actor's point of view, and it's the same with an artist, is this. It's very hard for an actor to own that they're an actor if they cannot point to something they've been in, something they're currently working on, or something they've been paid to do. And why is that? Because of something called the family holidays. And now the family holidays come along, and there's Uncle Joe, who you haven't seen in 20 years. And they say, so, Richard, what are you doing these days? Well, I'm an actor. And they go, oh, you're an actor? Where do you wait tables? Oh, what do you do? Do you just play around all day? Must be nice, right? Yet, what I would say today, if someone said, what's my job? I would say, oh, my job is to play pretend and play pretend fully. I'm sorry, what? Yeah, my job is to play pretend and play pretend fully. It's not to book the job. It's not to to track down the jobs. And that throws people for a loop when I say that. But the fact of the matter is, if you were watching Meryl Streep in an interview, and the interviewer said, so Meryl, what is your job? And Meryl Streep said, oh, my job is to play pretend and play pretend fully. We'd all go, oh my God.
Oh, it's so insightful.
It'd be on a coffee mug. It would be a meme. It would be on our vision boards.
Yeah.
And yet you can't think of one time in her entire career before she went into Yale to the time she came out, from Kramer versus Kramer to Sophie's Choice to The Devil Wears Prada, where that's all she was doing, is playing pretend and playing pretend fully, just telling another story. But the middle class thinking of it is like, well, of course, Meryl Streep, because she's been paid to do it and she's famous.
Right. She's won an award. Yeah.
Yeah. So it makes no sense. That's why, other people's opinions of me are none of my business.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And it's so funny. I love what you're saying. And it made me think of, oh, would you just goof around on the internet or whatever? And like, yeah, I goof around on the internet harder than anyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, who said, we've just set up these confines and structures that says that, unless you can prove your worth by money and fame and success, then you shouldn't be doing this. But as my mentor used to say to me, my teacher, Diana Castle, used to say to me, if you never made a dime at this, would you still do it? As an artist, you would.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's not even a question.
It's not even a question.
Now, I argue you wouldn't be able to not do it. You couldn't stop yourself.
Listen, you do what you have to do what you love to do.
Right.
So let's say you want to be an actor or you want to be an artist, but jobs are scarce. So you take a day job, and you can hate that day job, and you can be exhausted and have the worst day in the world. But that at 7 p.m. you're going to play rehearsal for a new play, or you're about to do a drawing get together, right?
Yep.
And that immediately you're awake, and you're like, it's like the day is starting all over again, because it's what you love to do. So you do what you have to do what you love to do. And I believe that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's when we run events and stuff, it's, I do the 9 to 5 part where you're promoting and sending out emails and, that kind of crap that you have to do in order to have those events. And, yesterday we ran one. It was a beautiful day. We were outside. It was gorgeous. And I said to my partner, I'm like, I love everyone here. And he's like, are you drunk? And I'm like, no, man, it's a great day. Like, it's beautiful out. Everyone's happy, and it was kind of like revitalizing, just kind of remembering like, oh yeah, I do this because I love it.
Well, from an actor's point of view, especially in voiceover, you spend about 98% of your time doing the business of doing business, and only getting about 2%, if you're lucky, of the time to do what it is you say you do. So it's very difficult to not get confused with the business of doing business and think you're in the business.
Yeah.
And actually getting to do what you say you do. So you have to go ahead.
How do you kind of do that 98%? Like, what keeps you going for the parts that you don't want to do?
Well, so I've been very fortunate. I've been doing this for 30 years now. And, the jobs that are right for me, I'm very lucky. A lot of times, creators or producers will come directly to me. The other ones that I have to audition for, either I'm right or I'm not right for them, but there's nothing I can do about that. So that 98% of the time is when I've done all that I can do on my part, send out emails or, inquiries. I let it go, and I do, and I remember that it's more important to me to be surrounded by expression. Yeah. So that's why I continue to do plays if work is slow, I continue to go to museums and concerts and everything where I'm around people who are constantly expressing, because that's what I want to be a part of. That's why I join theater groups. And that's why, I do play readings at my house with like a salon of friends, because that is the life that I always wanted.
Right.
And I've been very fortunate that I've been able to do that and support a family and, send my kids to college and et cetera, et cetera. So I never take that for granted.
I think that's a really great sentiment where you're saying you go to museums and concerts and stuff, because part of what this whole podcast has grown to be is, I may draw, someone else may paint, you're a voice actor, we have chefs on, comic book creators. We're kind of all the same people. We just have our own different, outlet.
Right, because we have a tendency to refer to artists as people who draw or paint but we're artists in the way we approach things. An artist of, fixing windows, for example. Mm-hmm. I see someone who can, I'm not kidding. I see someone who can do, a caulking line on a window.
Yeah.
And put that putty in there just so cleanly and neatly. And I'm like, wow, that is artistry. Have you ever tried to do that? Have you ever taken a putty knife and you always end up leaving some line as the putty line goes down. And I'm like, wow, I wish I could do that.
What does they say? They say that's what, like that 10,000 hours of working on your craft.
Yeah, that's what Malcolm, what's his name, his book, Outliers.
Yeah.
Outliers says 10,000 hours. And I believe that. But there's other things in that book in terms of for sports, it depends on the time of year you're born and what group you come up with. So like if your kid plays baseball, but he's born before the cutoff, then that means he'll be playing older with younger kids and be the star of that team. And vice versa. So,
that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting book. Malcolm Gladwell. That's it.
Yeah.
Outliers.
Is there that kind of thing with acting or voice acting where it matters who you come up with? Is there so for an example, I know like there'll be groups of the Groundlings or SNL that seem to exceed everybody else. So is there something about working with a group of peers that pushes you?
I don't think that it pushes me as much as it allows me to have fun with people who want to have fun in the booth.
Yeah.
I can name right off the top of my like the top of the bat. I could tell you 5 people that I love being in a room with. Number 1 is Charlie Adler. Mm-hmm. He's fun, whether he's directing or he's playing with me in the booth. Fun. I love being in the booth with, Frank Welker, perfect example. I love being in the booth with Frank, just an easygoing, really just a fun guy to play with. Billy West is fun to play with.
Yeah.
And so it's not like, a rap battle. Like, here's your thing, here's my thing, right?
Yeah.
But it can be because it does, when you see someone playing, it allows you to play. It's like when you go out with friends for, dinner and drinks. And you're laughing, and you're all at loudest people in the restaurant, and you're having a great time. And then you look around, and everyone's gone because the staff is ready to go home. Yeah. That's what it's like to me to work in the booth. On both sides of that glass, is that it's just you disappear into the hours like you do when you have a great, night out with your friends.
Is there like a friendly competitive to kind of like crack your friend up or kind of tag their line a little better? Like, is there kind of that little competition?
No, not really. Not really. You're just having fun doing your thing, and you're still giving to others, because that's kind of my thing, is that you always want to be giving to the others that you're playing with. I think the best example I've heard of this ever was I had gone to the AFI induction of Robert De Niro into the AFI.
Okay.
And I was sitting at a table with Danny Elfman and Bridget Fonda at the time. Danny had done the music for summer school, and he said, "Oh yes, that was
Danny Elfman did the music for summer school."
Yeah, he goes, that was my summer era. I did back to the beach, summer school, back to school. So everything was funny. That was just that period of his life. So we had a good laugh about that. But James Woods got up to just to do a speech about Robert De Niro.
Yeah,
and they had done a movie years ago, and it's one of my favorite movies ever. It was called Once Upon a Time in America.
Okay.
And it's a great movie if you haven't seen it. But in this story, spoiler alert, in this movie, Robert De Niro and James Woods grow up together as kids on the street doing petty crimes, and eventually they graduate to being their own kind of mafia.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, Robert De Niro gets busted and goes to jail. And the movie kind of picks up. He plays a character called Noodles as he's being released from jail and, working his way back into this gang, this mafia. So what ends up happening is there's a bank heist that goes horribly awry, and 3 members of the gang, including James Woods, they're burned to death in this firebombing of the bank, and they catch them and they're dead. So 20 years goes by, and one day, Robert De Niro, who did not do the heist with them, mm-hmm. he gets an invitation to this guy's fundraising thing because he's going to run for office, and this guy is exceptionally wealthy. And Robert De Niro shows up, and it's James Woods. So James Woods had faked his death, and Robert De Niro knew that. Yeah, so it wasn't a surprise to him. The reason I mentioned this story is because the week before, it was Monday, 4 or 5 days before they were about to shoot the scene where Robert De Niro sees James Woods for the first time after about 20 years. Robert De Niro goes up to James Woods and he goes, I was thinking, you should go to makeup and have them make you a teeth appliance, really nice teeth. He goes, because when people get money, the first thing they do is fix their teeth. So this was brilliant because that's how Robert De Niro thinks. He's thinking story at all times, which, like I said, is more important. And James Woods says, that's a great idea. Now, this is James telling this story at the AFIs. And he goes to makeup, and the makeup chiller says, that's a great idea. Unfortunately, to get it done by Friday, we would have to put a rush on it, and to get this teeth appliance, it's going to be $10,000, and it's just not in the budget.
Right.
So he goes, okay. Friday, James Woods comes into the trailer to get his makeup put on, and there's the teeth appliance. And he said, I thought we couldn't afford it. And the head of the makeup department said we couldn't. Bobby paid for it himself.
Wow.
So James Woods goes up to Robert De Niro and he says, Bobby, why did you do this? It's $10,000 out of your pocket. And Robert De Niro says, because if you look good, we all look good. And that's how I feel about working with my friends.
Yeah.
If I'm having fun, nothing's more important than that you feel good. And that's not a selfish thing, because if you feel good, then everyone around you will feel good because you're having fun playing, just like kids when you're on the playground.
Yeah, and you're all gonna be more into it, and kind of it'll be easier, more or less.
That's exactly what I refer to as work, is the playground.
Yeah.
I love even that. When I go in for auditions, which I call opportunities to play pretend, or callbacks, I call them second opportunities. I'll have a great take. I'll have fun, and I will enjoy that, because nothing's more important than I feel good and have a good time and have fun with what I did, because I have no control over the rest of it. I have no control over who wants to hire me, or if they do or they don't. Can't spend my life trying to please everyone. And I'll have a great take, and I'm laughing, the producers are laughing, the creators laughing, and more often than not, the cast and director say, that was great. They go, well, do you want to try a take 2? And more often than not, I'll say, if I were on the playground right now, that's how I would play. That's how I would play. Unless you have some way you'd like to direct me towards, I'd love to give it a shot.
Yeah.
And more often than not, they say, you know what, we love that one. And I'm like, great, me too. And I walk out.
Nice.
And I walk out. But most actors feel that they have to stay in front of them as long as they can,
right,
to show them everything they can do. But then you do a second take and it's exactly like the first take. And it's like telling the same joke twice.
Yeah. Or worse, maybe it's not as good. And then that's the one they're going to remember.
There you go.
Yeah. So we mentioned streaming very briefly, but it's more and more, and there's more content created just for streaming. And is there interest in your part where there's things like Invincible, that's more of an animated thing geared towards adults? Is that something that's on your radar, as like something that you want to do?
I'm currently doing a show right now, which has a huge fan base following. It's called Hell of a Boss, and it's on YouTube right now.
Okay.
And it's created by a woman who's amazing. She did it all by herself. It is network quality animation that she raised the money for, and she created, produced it, did the art. You'll see.
Yeah.
And another one called Has Been Hotel. Her name is Vivian Medrano, and online she's Vivzy Pop. So I'm currently voice directing that show and one of the stars of the show, of Hell of a Boss.
Yeah.
The caliber of our star list, and you go, YouTube? Yes. We have huge names on it. She'll put up an episode on a Saturday or Sunday. By the end of the day, it has over 1 million views. And by the end of the week, it has anywhere from 15 to 30 million views.
Wow. Which
is more than any network or streaming or anything else. And so I love it because she just said, hey, I'm going to do this myself. And she did it. And her fan base, look it up. Hell of a Boss.
I'm definitely going to do that.
And Has Been Hotel.
Has Been Hotel's the other one? I got to write that down.
Yeah. I do that. I do, as far as streaming platforms are concerned, I have a love-hate with the relationship with the streaming platforms, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
It's good work, and the residuals are, on a good project, the residuals are kind of comparable to cable residuals.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually sold a show to a streaming service, and they fronted the money for the pilot. But when you pitch to the streaming services, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want you to come in there and give them the first 3 seasons. They want to know the cliffhanger in season 1, what's happening in season 2, and what's happening on season 3. And the reason for that is because through their research, they have discovered that if someone is going to binge a show, they will not watch the show if they've missed the first 3 seasons. They will not binge it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So now you know why. How come that was only on 3 seasons? Why was that only on 3 seasons? That's the reason. The other reason I have an issue with streaming is that we are so inundated with content now that it's very difficult to really stand out.
Yeah, for sure.
First of all, streaming will not advertise your show. Netflix, you ever notice? Netflix will advertise themselves and maybe include a clip of, Schitt's Creek or whatever. But there is no advertising for one particular show.
Yeah, now that you say it, like they don't run ads on network TV for Stranger Things.
Not at all.
Huh.
They'll show it in like a montage of all their shows.
Right, yeah.
But it's not specifically promoting your show. In fact, they want you to promote it. They want you to use your fan base, and they send you all the, the ads and everything they want you to put on your social media. Yeah. So that's the first thing that drives me nuts about streaming. The second thing is just from a personal point of view, what we lose in streaming is the collective water cooler thing that we grew up with. Mm-hmm. So if you knew with 3 network channels, even when cable came along, it still was the same way. We were all watching the same thing at the same time, which drew us closer. Now, some will say, hey, have you seen the show? No, I got to write that down. And I never get around to watching it. It's like, oh yeah, I got to see that. Right. And I can't remember where I left off on that show because, it does 8 shows, boom, done. And you go.
And then you never go back and talk to that person.
No.
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing is,
I got to say, that's what I like about how they're doing. They do with the Mandalorian. They do with the boys.
They do an episode a week.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I love that. And when it started, I'm like, oh, God damn it. I hate this. I want to. And then I'm like, no, it gets me looking forward to watching the next episode. I'll sit down with friends and be like, have you seen it? We'll discuss ideas. And it brings that little bit of excitement back to it.
But the other thing is this. The thing that really bothers me the most about it, because so much of my childhood was spent in front of a television set.
Yeah.
My favorite show was Get Smart. I loved Get Smart. I loved, obviously, the Brady Bunch and Gilligan's Island and Island Lucy and all those shows. But the thing is, if you take Brady Bunch as an example, we were growing up as they were growing up.
Yeah.
So as the Brady kids got older, you would have to wait a week and there was no reruns. You were lucky in the summer if they rerun them. And now you can watch them all at once.
Right.
So there's not that journey that you take with them. Now, if you go to AMC and you look at a show like Mad Men, we take that journey with them. Better Call Saul, we take the journey with them. We are aging as they are aging, and times are changing for us as time is changing for them. But now I can watch all, 10 episodes of Cobra Kai and I'm done in a day. In a day.
That's really, you know what? That's really interesting. And I'm curious to see how my kids are nostalgic, because I feel like once you hit your 20s is when you start to get nostalgic about the things you grew up on. And how are they going to be nostalgic? Because the things when they were younger, they could binge watch, which, like you said, a season was a season, not a day.
That's right.
I'm really curious to see. That's really, really interesting. I'm curious to see how that unfolds.
Right. Because as the Brady kids got older, we were getting older.
Yeah.
And we were the same age as they were. And we couldn't wait for the new fall lineup to come out to see the new openings to the series and how they've modernized it, which is why, by the way, I absolutely loved WandaVision. Because I'm a TV fanatic.
WandaVision's so good.
Love it.
So good.
I have my issues with everything. I'm not critical about people's play pretend time. I totally mean that. I don't believe that someone is good or bad, right or wrong. I just believe in playing, right?
Yeah.
But judgmental about things that drive me crazy. As much as I love WandaVision, the whole military aspect and the girl from Two Broke Girls, that whole storyline was so underdeveloped that you don't even care about them. They were just saved as a conflict for the end of that.
Right.
But the brilliance of the filming and the storyline, and that I'm a Marvel fanatic, so that's
as am I. Yeah.
But Falcon and the Winter Soldier, best one of them all. I actually cried at the end of that one.
Wow.
Why? Epic in its filming. Epic in the stunts and the graphics, and everything about it was like very movie quality.
I'll agree with that. Yeah.
The story of the racism
was
really powerful. Really powerful. Okay. Now, do I think the Falcon should be Captain America? No, but I didn't write the comic book, so I have no say in it. Because to me, the Falcon will always be
Falcon. Yeah. It's interesting. I think.
Well, Captain America will always be
Steve Rogers.
Steve Rogers.
Yeah,
always.
I think it's one of those. If it came out in a different order, I think I would have liked it more. And I didn't dislike it.
Yeah.
But WandaVision was so weird and unusual.
Yeah.
And Captain Winter Soldier and Falcon felt more of a throwback to just a standard action movie.
Standard Avengers movie, say 3 in.
And then it went to Loki, which was like this crazy Marvel Doctor Who story. And I'm like, these are amazing. And I think it was just more
that's where everyone loves Loki. I haven't even finished it. I haven't gotten through it yet.
I thought it was so good.
Yeah, I've never been like a huge fan. I mean, not of the actors, but of the Loki storyline. Even Thor was okay, but I am so judgmental about what I consider a superhero. And my friend Ricky Simons and I have this discussion all the time. Ricky plays Gur on Invader Zim.
Yep.
And I am very adamant about what a superhero is versus what a vigilante is. So
I'm gonna go on a limb and I'm gonna say we're gonna agree on this, but go ahead. All right.
Let's take Iron Man.
Okay.
Iron Man is brilliant. He's genius and has a lot of money. So does Bruce Wayne. But if Don Cheadle can take a suit and learn how to fly it and then train an entire army of Iron Man, people wearing a suit, then it's the suit. And people say, well, he's brilliant. Okay. But does that make him a superhero? He has to have superpowers.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Batman, vigilante, not a superhero.
See,
I know people are going to hate me for this.
My argument is always Punisher, not a good guy.
No,
he's not a good guy. He's a serial killer.
Yeah. Well, okay. If you want to go that route, I'm sorry. First of all, Darth Vader, Luke finally turns him to the light just as he's dying, and all is forgiven. And it's like, you did it, Luke. You did it. You turned a murderer of younglings. Of younglings.
Yeah.
He murdered children. And we're supposed to go, oh, yay. He's back.
It's so funny how we can blank out those major character flaws. I remember this is going back. We were watching Game of Thrones, and my sister's like, oh, I'm starting to like Jaime Lannister. I'm like, didn't he rape his sister on his son's corpse in the last episode? And she goes, well, when you put it that way.
Didn't Jaime Lannister kick Bran out of the window of the tower and paralyze him?
Person. Yeah.
Of course, that's what they want to do. They want to manipulate you. But don't even get me started with the end of Game of Thrones. That show I loved until the end. I was like, what?
I think everyone was that way. Yeah.
But I'll give you one that drives me crazy.
Okay.
They should have known with the way they ended Lost that J.J. Abrams should never have had anything to do with Star Wars.
Do you see a shift in, because I feel like we're in the same age bracket. I feel like 95 and 10 years, 12 years after that, everyone hated the prequels. I still hate them. But I feel like suddenly in the past 3 or 4 years, it's that nostalgia. The kids that grew up on the prequels are starting to be like, well, the prequels aren't bad, but these new ones are terrible.
I take them for what they are.
Yeah.
So I did not like Phantom Menace because to me, that was all about, look what we can do with graphics and look at our computer designs and look at all these things that we can make, look amazing. But what I felt was sacrificed was story. And I never thought the acting was great in any of them, to be honest with you. I didn't think the acting was great, but the hero's journey, you can never go wrong with,
Yeah.
But I did not like Phantom Menace. I don't hate the prequels. Jar Jar Binks is annoying. I'll give everyone that. But I really do not like the last ones, the last three. First of all, I'm going to tell you why, and I'm so adamant about people.
Okay, no, go on.
I'm very opinionated about this.
Yeah, love it.
They made things up. They just changed the rules of the Force. The first thing is that the Force is around all of us. We can all learn to tap into the Force, right? It's a religion, right? It's the Jedis. But suddenly you've got a kid that can move a broom because he's using the Force. Wait, how were you trained? Luke couldn't do that until he learned to do that. But you, a 5-year-old kid, you're born with the Force like X-Men? No. No. Second, Star Wars, the first one, the first of the last three that JJ did,
Yeah.
is basically about a bus stranded in space. It's a bus stranded in space. Now, not only does that bother me, but suddenly Leia can fly through space because she's learned the Force. Where did that come from?
I hated that. I really hated that, and it looked bad. Like, even story aside, it didn't visually look good. I'm like, that looks so stupid.
And I'm sorry, Luke turned his father, right?
Yeah.
The killer and murderer of younglings, right? Towards the light and saw the good in him still. But I'm sorry, his nephew he's got to kill the nephew and give up everything that he's done his entire life because he was just so bad.
The one that killed me about that movie, or the thing that killed me about that movie, was had Poe just followed orders and listened.
Yeah.
It would have never, like, the movie wouldn't have happened. It was because some guy was an asshole and didn't pay attention. Yeah.
Right, because he couldn't be a clone. He couldn't be a clone anymore. But he couldn't be a stormtrooper, rather. But the other thing is that, one, I don't ever need to see Harrison Ford run ever again. Two,
don't watch the new Indiana Jones.
Two, he's still wearing the same exact clothes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Three, he's still hanging around the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
Four, they don't learn anything in all that they went through to let this empire rise again.
Yeah.
Five, it was so disrespectful the way they killed Han Solo. It was so disrespectful to the whole storyline, the canon. Oh, I'm going to just pull him over the edge. And don't even get me started with the Emperor being alive suddenly.
Yeah.
And then the greatest of all.
Okay.
Greatest of all is this. They make this whole thing. Look for the guy with the lilac in the casino.
Yeah, that was so stupid.
Then nothing happens.
Yeah.
He has nothing to do with
dumb.
it.
Yeah.
There's no follow through. There's nothing. But then remember this.
And there was stunt casting with Benicio del Toro.
There you go.
Yep.
Now, if you think of every Star Wars movie, arguably through time, Empire Strikes Back is the best of all of them. I
Absolutely.
will grant that.
Yeah.
I will grant that without a doubt. The problem is that even with that ending in a cliffhanger, right?
Mm-hmm.
They still had some victory, right?
Yeah.
At the end of each one, there was some victory. They blew up the Death Star in the first one.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. They, they got away and they lived to fight another day in Empire, right?
Yeah.
Luke learned to meet Yoda, right?
Yeah.
Now, this first one of this new batch, it's just nothing turned out for them. Nothing worked out. There wasn't one good thing that happened in that whole thing.
But see, I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit, because one of my favorites of all the new stuff they've done is Rogue Squadron, and there's no happiness in that.
but I'll tell you why that works.
They get the plans.
But I will tell you why that works, because that was a war picture.
Yeah, it was the best World War II picture I've seen in a long time.
And they were outside of the main character story. So that did have an ending. They died, rightly so.
Yeah.
Right. I'm talking about the first. I'm not talking about the offshoots. Yeah. I'm talking only about the
core story
that they're trying to shove into the canon. And I'm sorry. If you have this power that Rey and Darth, or whatever his name is, played by Adam Driver.
If you didn't say that, I'd know who it was. Oh crap! Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
They can communicate and be in the same room, planets away,
which never happened before.
Close enough to rip the necklace off of her. Then why couldn't Darth Vader find the rebels?
That was his own kids.
That was his own kids.
Yeah.
I hate that. That is making things up. This has nothing to do with Invader Zim.
It does not. But I love how wound up you are about it.
I am wound up about it. I've done conventions where I have taken on people because it drives me nuts. It takes me out of the story. That's the other thing. It's
that passion of playing pretend. I love this.
But they Disneyfied this one too. Oh, look, I just kicked some dirt and I happen to find this key lying in the dirt.
To me, it was the Pokemon aspect of it, where we're gonna like put in these, crystal foxes and these weird little creature things to just be like, we're just making stuff to sell you.
It's like, oh, what is this? What is this in the dirt of this cave? What is it? A key? I know how to use that. We got to put it on this microscope and match it up. It's like a video game.
Yeah.
That's the Disney aspect that drives me crazy.
That's funny.
Anyway, what questions do you have?
That's amazing. Well, what are you working on now that we can help promote for you?
So
I'm assuming it's not a Star Wars thing.
No, it will not be. Not in this lifetime, apparently. But Hell of a Boss is going on right now. My new video game, Psychonauts 2, just got released. And I have another game that I did this year called Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, where I play Zircon Jr. And I continue to work on The Loud House as Morpheus, and just a lot of stuff going on. I also coach voiceover. I also teach voiceover.
Cool.
So some of the things that you've heard me talking about are things that I talk about to my students.
Is there like a website for that, or
if you're interested in classes, you can go to Richard Horvitz classes, plural, at gmail.com. And also you can go to my website, richardhorvitz.com.
That's awesome. I love that kind of passing it on aspect.
Thank you.
So we had, it was probably about a year ago now. We had Doc Hammer on, and I'm a huge Venture Brothers fan.
Yeah.
And I've always tried to try not to ask the same stupid questions that everyone else asks. I got to the end of that interview and Doc is like, "You didn't ask me to do any of the voices." And I'm like, "No, man. Like, I feel like, I don't know, you're not a performing monkey." He's like, listen, he's like, I used to feel that way. He's like, until I met other voice actors that I idolized and loved. And all I wanted to hear them do was the voice. So can you give us an Invader Zim sign off?
Sure. I am Zim. Why was there bacon in the soup?
Outstanding. Richard, this was an absolute pleasure. Anytime you want to vent about Star Wars, you're welcome back on the show.
But
that was great.
I could go on and on about my favorite Marvel. I love the X-Men franchise. Love it.
How do you feel about them coming to the MCU? Are you feeling good about that? Is it gonna be a bad thing?
I don't know. I'm gonna withhold my judgment on that because I only tend to judge things once I've witnessed them. But
okay, that's fair.
I will say this. I can say that I thought X-Men 3 with the bridge and that whole thing, that it jumped the shark on that for me. But the very first one, amazing. I loved X-Men First Class. Amazing. Likewise, I loved Star Trek First Generation. I mean, Star Trek, the first movie, right?
Yeah.
With the one with Chris Pine.
Chris Pine. Yeah.
Perfect casting. Wonderful. Loved it. Then they go to the second one. And it's
the second one where the Beastie Boys won the day? I can't remember now.
The second one is Khan, who is Benedict Cumberbatch. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. Khan is a Native American played by Ricardo Montalban. And it wasn't even a mission, our mission, our 4-year mission to explore a new world, right? It was a vengeance movie.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
It's so funny. I saw that movie and then me and my friends just kept referring to it as Star Trek running and crying with hats. Because that's all they do in that movie is run, cry, and they wear hats.
Yeah. But the first one, when they're going through the academy, that was brilliant. Kinto as Spock, perfect casting.
Oh yeah, really good.
Yeah.
And God, I'm blanking on his name. Bones.
Right. He was wonderful.
No,
I met him.
He's great in everything he does.
Yeah,
Like, I love that dude.
Yeah. He was
best Judge Dredd.
Yes.
So good.
Yes.
All right, Richard.
Fun.
Yeah, we can nerd out anytime. You're
right.
welcome back on the show.
Thank you.
And thanks to our listeners. Please check us out again next week when we'll have someone else. All right. Thanks, Richard.
See you next time. Thank you.
And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. Thanks again for listening.